and welcome to another bonus episode of Right on Track, the podcast where we discuss all things relative to Thomas the Tank Engine. And this is a special episode indeed because here at Right on Track, we love ranking in all the guests that we can get to help us sink our teeth into these episodes of Thomas. And with me today, I have none other than
Mel Shiri. That
Hey,
introduction.
how are you doing?
I'm not too bad. How are you doing, Tom? Back in the outback.
Yeah, we're doing well. We're keeping well. It's relatively sunny here still. We're kind of nearing towards winter, but fortunately, Mr. Sun has decided to stay around a little bit longer this year.
Hmm. That's good. Yeah, it's very hot down here in Brighton on the mainland, in the town of Worthing, birthplace of the old craft. We're having very good weather. It's like 20 degrees out here, which will go into the next week. We've had good weather since lockdown, which is staggering for 10 weeks. But yeah, we're doing fine for the most part. Worthing is still social distancing on the beaches, which is surprising even now. And I myself am keeping well and just taking a break from YouTube just a little bit, and just keeping by and adding, permanent marker colors to various die-cast Thomas models that I've got. So yeah, I'm keeping in check.
Beautiful. That sounds fantastic. Now, for those who don't know, you're quite a common dweller over on YouTube. What do you do over there?
Well, on YouTube, I am known as the Roll Along Man on Roll Along Thomas. That channel's been going on for 10 years, and that has always been aimed at families and kids. And I recently put out a string of videos under the subtitle 14 Days of Tom 75, which, believe me, was a bit hard, and I clearly wasn't that prepared because I missed the deadlines at 4 p.m. to put up these damn uploads. But I got there in the end, and it was just my way of celebrating the brand while celebrating it at the same time. And I've got more ideas for other videos, but I just want to take a breather for the time being. So I've been on that for 10 years, and people would have seen my name on certain Facebook posts on the SIF Facebook. I am also part of Trainmaster, which is a train-themed birthday parties business, and I was offered the chance to take over the South region, so we'd get lots of Tomy and Trackmaster kits and lay them out on the floors in village halls and venue hires and community centres, and leave all the kids to play with them. And I'm just waiting to receive my kits, and that will be going ahead. And otherwise, I've been lending my voice to more Thomas fandom fan videos. I did one for Kirsty Wynne Edwards, which is now up. There's one I've done for Tram Engine Studios. I think I've done one for Turtles and Thomas, and I've done another for Matt Michard, really good buddy of mine, as well as you. And I also, and this is a long way off, have recorded audio tellings of Thomas and the Magic Railroad books. But
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that'll be on SIF soon. So 20 years of magic and sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
That's fantastic. That's a myriad of activities that you've got going on. And I can say I've definitely known about you for a long time, reading the Roll Along Thomas blog many, many years ago. But you're definitely well versed in the Thomas fandom community.
I am, and it's just out of pure love, and I've managed to meet certain of those in real life who are great buddies of mine. I just keep going. This is the most active I've been in all of those years. This year is now the most, and I just don't see any shame in that. I really do not see a problem with being an adult of 26 years, or in Ryan's case, 54, And sorry, Scotty. And I don't see a problem with still being a kid at heart, and I still follow everything about it. So yeah, I'm fairly active at the moment, and I just try and please as many people as I can, while also keeping positive, which personally I feel the fandom needs more of, and no more nitpickies.
Yeah, and I think there's a really beautiful act in embracing those things, because I think as adults we forget to imagine or just kind of muse ourselves with the things that we loved as we've grown up. So it's a really awesome thing to be able to do that, and I myself try to do that as well.
And I really admire all the stuff you're doing, Tom. So yeah, you're on the same field.
Thank you very much. Now, today, we're doing something very special. We haven't done this on Right on Track before, but one of our podcast friends across the pond, Talking Thomas, do this every episode. They watch along each story and provide, I guess you can call it a commentary. They talk about the episodes, and they make observations and remarks about them. But we thought we'd try this out today as a little bit of a bonus snippet for you guys, because during, I guess, lockdown, we've tried hard to kind of put out more content for you guys to listen to as you go about your day or as you decide to listen to the podcast. So we thought this would be something a little bit different. And you've picked some rather very interesting episodes for us to watch today, haven't you?
Yeah, I wanted to go sort of outside the norm of what the conventional fans would pick, you know, the whole this is the best episode or whatever. But I wanted to go for ones that personally I grew up with and kind of hold to heart, but also some that I perhaps feel I wanted to comment on or felt they were relevant, or even ones that I wanted to discuss more that I feel have forgotten, and maybe discuss the negatives, but obviously being constructive about it. So, but you know, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like, you know, a riff off or drunk reactions, because personally I'm against alcohol. I don't drink it.
That's fair.
But you know, just to examine these more and revisit them, I don't see why not. You know, and lockdown has allowed everyone to do more stuff at home, be more accessible, and go back to watch old stuff. And if you really are getting anxious of all that what's happened with isolation and everything, then the best thing to do that I would find is watch things that make you laugh or smile or cherish, and just keep distracted.
I was listening to the radio today, and one thing that they were observing, that everybody is going back to having a bit of a nostalgia kick. And I guess this is something that we're doing here today. But that's something,
Yeah.
I guess, across all mediums that should be celebrated.
Yeah, and it makes sense also because, you know, we are in the 70th anniversary year, and also we're in the Magic Railroad's 20th year. We've got the 5th years of Adventure Begins and Lost Treasure, and there's a few others that I am struggling to remember. So yeah, I just feel that all that stuff is all the more to hold more dear and take forward to today, and also learn off morals, which I feel a lot of fans need to be honest with you.
I totally agree. So the way this is going to work, this is an interactive bonus episode of the podcast. So listeners, what you can do at home, you can find your DVD copy or VHS copy, if you still obtain one of these episodes, and rewind and go to the right place. And what we will get you to do, if you're so inclined, is to play the episode in sync with us. So Mel and I will be hitting play at one moment, and then we'll be talking as the episode goes, and we invite you to do the same as well.
There we go. And I believe we're going to go straight in without any theme intro, end credits. It's just straight in. So, yes. Where do we go from here, Denham?
So what's the first episode that we're going to be talking about?
Well, the first one is Edward Gordon and Henry, otherwise known as the 4th ever episode episode of the TV show. This was one of the first ones I ever saw, and I think this was on the, and I might get this wrong, so don't kill me, fans, but this might have been on the Your Favorite Story Collection VHS here in the UK, the silver white one. And it's just one of those ones which I feel I want to revisit, and I haven't revisited this in I don't know how many couple of years I have. So I would like to start off with that. Start on a happy note, rather.
It's a good note to start on. So, listeners, if you're watching along as well, we're going to hit play in 3, 2, 1.
And here we go with James, Edward, and Gordon. And Ringo Starr.
That's a wonderful little consist that James is pulling there.
Uh-huh. And then straight into the rap by WTL Network. I've always had a bit of a, loving feeling with how Ringo would always do Gordon, just give that ethereal, poop, 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 just that slight deep voice going on and the softness in his voice. And I feel that Ringo was kind of a natural when he first started out.
I think so, and I don't think he realized it as well. But the characterization of Gordon particularly is really beautiful.
Yes. It's here that this is one of my favorite ever faces, just the classic Gordon. Oh, I'm so bothered by this. It's one of the most classic faces, and it makes me laugh so much. So every time I see it in a meme or image, I just can't help but laugh.
And I love that little musical ditty that we see there. It sounds like somebody's laughing.
There was something I just noticed, that shot where Gordon just passed away from the camera shot. If you looked very carefully, and I've only just noted this, the back coupling on his tender was skirting on the wooden rail balls of the tracks. I've only just noticed that.
Oh, wow.
This is one of my favorite scenes ever, because I just remember it so dearly with the close-ups of Gordon and Fat Controller. It's the way it's been photographed and framed. He's really head on, and the rest is blurred. I love that. And then you look at the brick wall these days, and you can see, a crew member could just simply remove that because you can see the gap on the curves.
Yes.
And a lot of people say that, Sad Story of Henry really, maybe traumatized them a bit, or the articles that you get these days. But I never really had that at the time myself. I just took it as it was, and I was very confused as a young'un.
Yeah, neither did I. And I think a lot of those articles watch that episode alone very much out of context. So with this episode, it provides a lot more.
Every time that gets re-examined, like I know there was that Denham Geek article that went out, and then it's like, you left a mention like that when they hadn't seen the very next episode, or even the longevity of the Henry character or whatever. And all I think in my head is, don't get Thomas wrong.
It's exactly right. The whole Thomas world just needs to be jovial and happy.
Oh, then we go into the whole goat and the hat gag.
There's a boy almost falling off the platform there.
Oh, yeah. This conga line shot, It would be
Oh
great,
yeah,
more of that, but the nearest we've got to that recently would have been the Party Train music video, which I can't help but jig along to.
it is a good bop.
Yeah. And that is the end of the epo.
It's a really nice episode, and I think it really concludes that story. I guess in its TV entity, it concludes that arc really nicely.
Yeah, I feel it's one that perhaps gets a bit overlooked these days because, you know, it sits next to the sad story tale. Yeah, I just have a warm feeling inside. I adore that episode dearly.
Yeah, and I really like that. I think in most episodes of Thomas, it feels like one character or another will receive their comeuppance. But I think the really nice tying of the bow in this story is that Edward and Henry complete their train, but then they go back for Gordon.
Oh yeah. It's kind of like a redemption in regards to their characters, and then it's like, oh, we better go and get our friends. So it's good to have that three railway engines vibes, which, to be honest with you, we haven't exactly lost. You know, if you would have seen the Royal Engine episode, there was a bit of that in there, but you know, it dips in and there, and
It
there's
does, yeah.
there's about 250 other characters that we're having to deal with. So what there's to me, I don't see an issue with the whole focus because there's so many other characters to get through.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Any closing thoughts?
I mean, that episode was 1984, so that episode is now 36 years old.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Not quite as old as us just yet. I can say I'm officially 10 years younger than that episode. If you know your maths, you'll know how to do that. Yeah, I just have a warm, good feeling with that episode, and love it dearly.
It's good. It's good. Shall we move on to the next one?
What was the next one? I'm totally lost.
Of the next one that we have on the list, listeners, is Percy James and the Fruitful Day.
Ah, this I saw, and I'm struggling to remember what VHS this might have been at the time. I want to say this was on the biggest party collection ever VHS. I might be wrong, but it's just one that I remember so much that perhaps gets overlooked these days. And I just consider this as one of the classic, straightforward fairy tale like engine tales where the engine gets their comeuppance, and so and to me, I just like how sort of isolated and stale the locations are, because there's areas that we haven't quite been into before, such as when we go into the scene with James Thomas, Annie and Clarabelle. It's that station which viewers might know the name of, but I certainly don't to this day. And
No, neither.
I think it makes more sense if we just go straight in.
I think so. So if you're watching along, we're going to hit that play button in 3, 2, 1.
It was a splendid morning on the island of Soho. James was feeling very pleased with himself. His red paint gleamed in the sunshine as he sped along the line. He reached the junction just as Percy.
This was one of the scenes I wholeheartedly remember.
What are you doing here, Percy? You should be at the next station by now. You're late. Don't sign.
For me, Michelangelis is the narrator. For me, I grew up with him. A lot of people do, and you know, you just kind of admire the 21 years that he did. I was very shocked when I think we were all shocked when he left. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you a very brief story that I knew he was going to leave a year and a half before we actually got to witness it. At the time when I can't remember, I must have been 20 at the time. This was around about 2011. Michael Brandon was in Singing in the Rain of the West End, and I loved it. This was the time when I was more feeble and much more annoying as a young adult.
We all go through that, don't worry.
And I met him at the stage door, and he was very nice with that gravelly tone that he's got, and he signed my Day of the Diesels Blu-ray. It was the UK one, but let's move on. And then I said, "You going to do any more, Thomas?" And he said, "No, they've brought new people in." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, and Michael's left as well." And I was like, "Oh my goodness," and all that. And
That's a huge bombshell.
It was a huge bombshell, and I was so aghast and shocked. And I kept it a secret for a year and a half. I did tell Ryan probably a few months after that, and he had no idea either. So I kept it a secret for that long until Railway Mischief, the US DVD, came out. And yeah, it was a real shame, but but there you go. And this is the station right here that I'm referring to.
Yeah. I love this vibe that it feels so separate from the rest of the railway, and we never see it again.
Was this only the one episode?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I think so, yeah.
It's just the remoteness and the slight wear and tear it's got. It kind of looks like something that would have been near Toby's shed. I don't know.
Yeah. And the chemistry between Percy and James is absolute, I guess, icing on the cake for this story particularly.
Yeah, the sexual tension going on there. No. It's that shot right here with Percy's drywall fireman, the way the cab rattles. All I can think about is every time I see that only a crew member just has to put their hand and just jigsaw his hand about just to get that effect.
Oh.
Straight into the gunge. I never understood this bit as a kid with that green liquid going on him, and to this day, I still don't know what that is.
It's liquid detergent, I think.
It's very liquid.
Yeah. Washing detergent.
Other washing detergents are available.
I remember that image was on a Thomas VHS I had called Escape and Other Stories, and it just intrigued me because I had no idea what I was about to get into.
This frame of Thomas, yeah, it's really clean.
Mm. This whole shed interior is so beautiful because it's exclusive to this season, and we never see it again.
So this wasn't meant to be Tidmouth Sheds?
I think it's supposed to be, because we saw in the Christmas episode or the Thanksgiving episode that is inside Tidmouth Sheds. I believe it is.
I don't know. If anybody can answer that, then yeah, or if we're so behind with our research. But I don't really know, because I don't really know if I don't think it is Tidmouth Sheds, because you think about the same series and then you go into Henry's Forest and it shows the interior of Tidmouth Sheds.
And then we see the interior of Tidmouth again in series 4, and it looks exactly how it did in that episode. It could be another shed in the Tidmouth region, or Knapford, or Vickerstown. We don't know. But it looks really nice.
It does. One thing that sprung to mind, and I know we've just gone past the finish line on this episode, the moment when Percy is covered with all that fruit and you get the aftermath shot, I'm surprised that there has never really been any toy released of that, or at least somebody has made one. Come to think of it,
it feels like one of those stories that would get a bunch of merchandising, but it just hasn't.
No.
Like, you look at Thomas Comes to Breakfast or Percy's Chocolate Crunch, they've had masses of merchandising.
I've actually got the chocolate Percy in one of my collections, the Take Along Taken Place one. But yeah, I mean, and also we haven't really had, I might be wrong, the Sticky Toffee Thomas, Bushy Thomas, as it were.
Yeah, another very memorable episode of that era.
Which I find underrated, personally.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think in retrospect, there's a lot to really like about this particular story. I think I'm one of those fans who never gave it enough credit than it deserved.
Really?
But looking at it again, I really like the characterization of James and Percy. I think that's the one thing that sticks out for me. And there's some lovely shots, as he said, and we see some lovely one-off locations.
How long has it been since you saw that episode?
Probably a year since I've seen that episode. It's not one I jump towards immediately, but it's one that's kind of in the back of my mind, hankering around somewhere.
There we go.
Any concluding thoughts?
Oof, I'm really trying to think. I've only just realised that has it's very much a Percy and James focused story with the assistance of the Fat Controller, and the other engines just cameo towards the end. So I kind of like that very fixed focus going on, and it gives the story a much more tailored feel. You know, this episode was tailored for the Percy and James rivalry, and then James gets one above Percy once the latter crashes. Which I feel we don't quite have much these days. I know we've had a few recently, but yeah, it's something that I always pick up on, and maybe that's why I favour it so dearly.
Yeah. Good thoughts. Shall we try another?
What was the next one? Because I've lost my brain.
That's okay. We got the World's Strongest Engine up next.
Oh, yes. There we go. World's Strongest Engine is another one that I feel is underrated, but it's also probably one of the most hilarious episodes I find. Diesel has a folly, and he clearly can't get anywhere past being as strong as Henry, which I've only just sort of now learned that was then carried on more in the Great Race.
Which I really like, yeah. I remember watching the Great Race for the first time and going, that's a nice little nod. It's not like in your face, but it's just subtle, which I like.
I've only just realised that now that nod's been carried on further, and the way that Diesel is, you know, down the pit, as it were, again, it kind of is a precursor to the storylines of Diesel that we get these days, like Diesel Do Right or Glows Away or whatever. But it's one of those episodes that I feel is so linear and so straightforward that even the title itself, you know, adds to that sort of tag, as it were. But I'm ready to go when you are.
Sounds good to me. Listeners at home, if you're watching along too, we're going to hit play in 3, 2, 1.
And here we go with the intro. Callum.
One of the things I think Series 6 did so well was its establishing shots or sequences at the beginning. There was always a lot going on.
It's this bit right here that I never understood why Oliver was reversing with that load.
Yeah, neither did I.
Does anybody know why? Unless he's like, oh, I've just made the wrong place for the delivery. I better go back.
Wrong points.
Series 6 is, in my view, the series where Michael Angelis is at his enthusiastic best. He's so energetic, and some people have said he isn't, but they need to look at these episodes more in the series, because My goodness, he's got so much energy going on, and I feel he peaked here.
Just watch Thomas and the Jet Engine.
Yeah, one of the most balls to the wall episodes you can get.
Oh, true.
Ooh, there we go. If you've seen this on certain releases, you'll know that the Diesel front of view camera shot is always stretched. And I don't know why. And in fact, Series 6 was kind of riddled with that. Even if we go into the music videos, like Little Engines, there's that scene with Oliver and Stepney over the viaduct, and it's been sort of, you know, the frame is so out of place that it's clearly from a widescreen version, and they just forgot to undo that, and it's so jarring to me.
Yeah. This is the first time we've seen Diesel since season 3, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I know people at home will be going, excuse me, you kind of saw Rusty to the rescue? Yeah, but that was meant to be other engines. Those reuses still have it today. The model series had reuses. People need to remember this fact.
Yeah.
I'm so glad Thomas didn't interfere with the story. It was like, hey, I could be as strong as this.
It's nice when he just kind of looks on and just watches havoc wreak.
Yeah. There we go. I remember a lot of people being very confused with the geography of the close-up on Diesel's wheels. And the only way you could see the actual frame is seeing the widescreen version. If you saw it in full screen, you would also be confused about what way Diesel was actually pulling.
Yeah.
And even myself got confused at the time.
Oh, the face.
Oh, yes.
This was a memorable moment, I guess, in my childhood, because I remember seeing this episode for the first time on TV. And it was one of those episodes that really got me excited about Thomas again. Oh, there he goes.
It's so good how the music stops and it's just the help. I know that Alec Baldwin did a much longer elongated help, so I kind of like that in a way from Alec, even though he wasn't, in my view, a good narrator.
It's always interesting to see how the American dub weighs out. And talking to people who are accustomed to that more than the UK as well.
The way that Henry gets his redemption really shows how much of a physically strong character he is, and you get this one take of the shot going on as long as it can, showing every single truck that he's pulling. And the only thing I noticed at the end was, oh, there was no brake van, but then you have to realise that Henry was at the back of Diesel's train.
Yeah. He could be forming an even larger train.
Yeah. And then 1 series later, he comes back.
And he's never left since.
Yeah, and somebody asked me a question, and we've already finished the episode, but somebody asked me, who's your favourite Diesel? And I didn't realise that at the time what my favourite one was. But these days, I now say it is Diesel, because I know he gets probably a bit more storylines that people think he should. But I think it's because I'm so entertained by, you know, how crafty he can be, but also how hilarious he can be. And this episode is kind of an example to that, sort of a precursor to the later content we see of him. And for me, Kerry Shale really, really sells Diesel, and he has the most fun with the character.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's my favourite.
Yeah. I think Kerry Shale really nails the characterization on the head, and he's a much more camp villain now, which I really like. Like, he tries to be all big and sadistic, but he's really not. Which I think is definitely the right tone for Thomas. He really fits into that universe in that kind of nice way.
I was watching a few of the American dubs the other day. I think it was. I must have watched the American Percy and the Calliope again, and it's just so strange going into that one when I remember people favoured the Brandon take of his gruff Diesel, and then you go straight into the Kerry Shell Diesel episodes, and it's such a stark contrast that I feel that Kerry definitely wins out on, because he has the energy, he has the vigor, he has the tenacity, but he also has the display of mischievous. There's a scene briefly in A Most Singular Engine when Diesel is with Thomas, and then he's about to see Harvey, and he just quickly backs backwards on his line near Thomas, and it's just that very scene. And then it cuts to this is me fanboying here. Then it cuts to a close up of Diesel after Harvey says, "Oh, I don't want to run into Daisy," and then you just creep in and see Diesel going, and I remember laughing so hard because it was that infectious kind of dry laugh, which I just cannot help but just have a fascination with how Kerry does it.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to, I guess, hear about his methods, but like I love to think that like if Diesel was a human, or if Kerry Shaw was voicing him in the studio, he'd have a hunchback and he'd be putting his fingers all together like as he's brewing a plan. I see him as like a classic henchman.
Wow, there you go.
Should we go for one more?
What was the other one?
There was a list there, and I just picked one at random. How do you feel about Percy and the Calliope?
Ooh, now that you mention it, then yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, this was the one where people described it as the one gem from the dark years, as it were. And looking back on it, I have to say it kind of holds up still, despite the repeated patterns that we get throughout that sort of age.
The three strikes rule and...
Yeah. But yeah, I just feel that to this day, it's still kind of underrated. But otherwise, I am ready for this.
Beautiful. I'll cut this bit out. Are you watching the Thomas HD Center version?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm watching the same one. This one includes the title sequence, yeah?
Yeah. So we'll go into that.
Awesome. So listeners at home who are watching Percy and the Calliope, we're going to hit play in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, here we go. And a lot of people have noticed that from the various series 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, if you check the differences of the intro, there are certain color grades and contrast differences between each series. So if you look back on those ones and compare them, you will see some differences, slight ones.
And I just love the grinding of the windmill sound effect at the beginning. It's very just slotted in there, but it works nicely.
I think the music here in the intro always set the mood for this. I don't want to say it's a revolutionary episode, but it was at the time. It kind of hints at the changing attacks, and Robert Hartshorne really sets the mood here, bringing some energy into this old and new modern day Save from Scrap storyline, which this actually is, to be honest.
It is, yeah.
Now, at the time, I had no idea what a Calliope was. I learnt it from this episode, and I had no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, likewise.
Really?
Yeah.
It was very strange. I thought, oh, that's what Calliope was, and I remember searching on Google, and I was like, oh my goodness, even I didn't know that. So, I think we could say that the this age of Thomas actually did it educate us adults in a way.
I had the same thing with Duck and the Slip Coaches. I thought the Slip Coaches was something designed by the Thomas writers, and I looked it up and went, no, it's a thing.
Mm.
Think the organ was junk. He thought it was special.
People pointed out how they loved the chemistry between Percy and Diesel. Diesel being the one to downbeat Percy, and Percy being like, no, this is actually usable. And later on in the episode, you get the emotion that Percy conveys because he's clearly committed and he believes in this thing being revived, which provides a bit of an arc for Percy in a way.
Yeah. And I love, some people are not so for it, but I love Percy's sense of curiosity all the time. And sometimes when he sees over things as very matter of fact, I think that's something really beautiful about his character.
I know people have their preferences, but I don't really understand people bludgeoning this episode just because it was from the dark years, when really this is actually the one that sticks out the most for being so much mirrored from a classic storyline and bringing it to now. But also it has emotion, which you actually believe in more this time than the other one.
Yeah, very much so.
We all know this bit is silly, but it proves that Percy doesn't want to give up on this. So I'm willing to let this bit go, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
You get the infectious laugh.
He hadn't fixed the Calliope.
I'm sure I can make this Calliope play.
Come to think of it, I'm glad that Thomas wasn't used in this one because it just would have been overkill, which, as we all know, was at the time of this age.
Just watching this episode now, one thing that I've noticed is really nice about the nitrogen era of CGI is how the lighting develops.
I've never quite realised that. The forest scenes are some of the best cinematography they did, but they really do pale in contrast to what Ark and Jamfield would eventually do. Nitrogen just reused so many templates, which could have been a budgetary issue, but it really does pale these days. And looking back on it, I know we accepted it at the time, their CGI, but these days it looks a bit more primitive to the stuff we get now.
Yeah.
And it's dated, I'm afraid to say. When was the last time you saw this one, Tom?
It would have been, when did this come out? 2015. Probably when it came out.
2015, are you sure?
Around there, yeah.
Thomas fans at home will be going like, don't get it wrong! It's what, 2012 this would have been.
That sounds about right, yeah.
This was the one bit where we refer to Topham's bodyguards as helpers. Yeah. The factory drives off, but where the hell are they meant to go?
They have to catch a bus.
It's just
Bus
left them.
taxi.
What you think that Bertie was gonna hang about and be like, oh, there you guys are. Would you like to?
If I push the Calliope, it will play.
So wheel turn by wheel turn, Percy pushed the Calliope faster and faster. The organ rattled and raced along the track.
Is SR meant to stand for Solar Railway on that truck?
I don't know. Possibly.
Must save it from the smelter's yard.
The Calliope rattled along in front of Percy.
Duchess pointed out that the Calliope was let out to rust, but we never quite realised where or learn where it actually came from. Was it really from the Duke and Duchess's possession, or yeah, that's something we don't quite know.
fan creators out there, make a origin story for the Calliope.
Was there ever a toy made of this?
I don't know. I
think
feel
it-
like it would have been something Take and Play or Take Along would have done.
There's a thing I really want to comment on. You get, boom, that sound effect, which triggers Percy's emotion. There's three things that happen in this bit. The sound, it triggers his emotion. He cries through his whistle, and then Diesel just comes up with that one-liner saying, "That's the only music I've heard all day," and it just gives Percy that momentum to strive further. It's three things that happen in that moment, and it really pays off towards the end of the episode. I feel that is one moment that is really good. And this was the bit which a lot of people were not prepared for. The thing that would make them cry in happiness. I didn't realise this was the theme tune at the time because I was listening to the storyline. Then I looked back and people pointed out this is the original theme tune. And then I was like, oh my goodness, yes.
I only realized it recently. I saw it on Twitter,
Really?
and I saw the clip that was attached, and I went, "No, it isn't."
I thought
And I
it
watched it,
is.
and I went, "It is."
Blimey, you Australians get later and later with stuff.
We do.
The time zones is bad.
You have saved an important piece of Sodor's history.
It's that line which is pretty much the tagline of this episode.
Victor will fix it properly.
But my goodness, what an endorsement. And people would rank this as, oh my god, that was the best episode ever. It's not the best episode ever. It's the best episode of the Dark Age. But yeah, you can't ever have that fuzzy feeling, and it's so lovely that they put the arrangement in, and Robert did a very good version of it.
Yeah.
It was the sweetest sound on soap.
Oh yeah, and then Dee's just looking so baffled and confused. Oh, there we go.
That's really warming,
It
that
really
episode.
is.
Yeah.
It really is, and I mean, the pace is a bit slow, but there's so much heart that Percy puts in it and Diesel's opposition that you kind of forget about the pace because the character interactions are really sold well throughout this episode. And, you know, I know people will say this is the same three-strike rule, but it kind of works it because it builds towards Percy's commitment to really not only proving himself, but proving that what is old can still be used now, which PA problems did further, but it was more done for laughs, and this was more done for some emotion.
Which I think is something that is quite rare in, I guess, modern Thomas. So it's really nice to see a little bit of it here.
Yeah, I mean, the Great Race had, you know, some emotion. If I could pick an example, with Percy telling Thomas at the Great Railway Show, I hope, I don't know if I want to give up my place, Thomas, in this race, or you should, or whatever. It's the scene with Emily. I mean, personally, I think that the TV series nowadays still has emotion. Like Wish You Were Here is a very good example of that. Yeah, but even in the grim age we've just referenced here, my God, this was a rare treat. And it doesn't quite stand up today because of the visuals and the structures at the time, but it really is a highlight. And, you know, it is such a heartwarming ending as well.
Yeah, I definitely attest to that. I think the story just feels very wholesome, and the characterization of both Diesel and Percy is done so eloquently here. And it's, as we said, something that's quite rare in this era of the show that we're watching. But there's one or two or three episodes that pop up here in each season that really catches everybody's attention.
Yeah, I agree with that very dearly.
Yeah. I think another episode from this era that comes to mind as a really good one is Happy Birthday, Sir.
Yeah, it does start off well. It does start off well, and it unfortunately is poorly executed after 3 minutes in, which was a real shame. And little did we know that would be, apart from myself, of course, that it would be the final Michelangelo's episode, not counting Blue Mountain Mystery. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hit and
I,
miss in this
I
age.
think the Calliope, yeah, I think the Calliope. Sorry, I think the Calliope episode should have been the last one of the Nitrogen Age to go out.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps it up really nicely. Mel, thank you so much for joining us,
No,
talking
it's
along these episodes.
I love
Before you go, is there anything you particularly like to plug, or where can we find you online?
Well, people can find me on my Twitter at Mel Shiri, which is MELSHIRI. If people can also give me a follow in there, that would be really fab of you guys. I would love to interact with a few more of you. Please also follow the Trainmaster pages, facebook.com/TrainmasterHQ, and also the one I'm on, Trainmaster Sussex and South Hants. So if you type those on Facebook, you will find them. Otherwise, you will see me posting stuff on the SI Facebook, and please subscribe to the Roll Long Thomas YouTube. I would love you forever for that. And also, if you want to follow my Fat Controller Act cosplay stuff, then you will see the stuff on there as well, which, believe me, requires a lot of blood, sweat, and energy to do. So you will find me on all of those places there, and I hope I haven't forgotten one.
Mel Shiri, thank you so much again. It's always been a pleasure, and we hope you're keeping healthy and well during this time too.
You two guys, much love, and keep well yourselves. You two fans. Bye-bye.
See you later.